having to bustle it out pretty well from here. That's Powell, the front rower. Not a bad run there. Busted the first tackle, that initial tackle there from Waters, the lock forward for Canberra. Now held up in the tackle is Glanville. The St George lock forward, not a bad player either, Bill.
He's a tremendous player. He's a former Australian schoolboy player. He's been playing under 23 football with St George. He's earned a promotion into the reserve grade, and I know from having spoken personally to Roy Masters, he's a youngster that he's got his eye on for first grade in the very near future.
Nice kick for touch there by Funnell, bringing play to about 18 metres inside Canberra territory. Thompson to feed once again, the Canberra halfback. Penalty St George. Penalty to St George. And what do they... They'll try and drive it right down that line and put plenty of pressure on Canberra from there. So the man with the ball is Funnell once again. It's a nice touch kicking so far, very early in this match. Now St George to put on the pressure. Taking up there is Glanville. Good bust too. Up as dummy half this time is Power, or rather reversing it back. Up there will be Walsh. Chris Walsh, the second rower, but some hefty Canberra defence there to meet him. Dummy half Townsend. Townsend getting it on then to Powell. Powell pulled down about 7 or 8 metres out now. Dummy half waiting for it. Townsend again. Crossover then to Neil, a big one over the top. Ought to be taken nicely over there. Cutting through was Johns, gets it out to Johnson. Johnson's over for the try. That's the first try of the match. Fullback Brian Johnson chimed in nicely, took the pass outside and is over for the opening try of the match in this reserve grade grand final.
It was a great opening try, this one to St George. I thought that Alan Neil took a little bit of a risk himself. He threw the long ball. There was a chance of an intercept, but it wasn't to be. The ball fell into a pair of St George hands, then switched on to Brian Johnson. He stepped off the left foot, was able to push through the fullback's tackle and go over for the opening 4-pointer.
Yes, a little bit dodgy here as that ball was flying through the air, but good work here, coming right onto what was Williams' centre. And there's Johnson going for the line, comes up for the fullback. See you later. One hand to balance him in, then over for the line, and a nice start for St George with the lead of 4 points to 0. Lead-up work there also from Williams, the centre for St George. Billy chimed in nicely and then set it up well for Johnson outside to finish it off.
Williams did do well. He ran into the hole. He seemed to know where the pass was going. He stepped back into the gap, took the ball and knew when it was time to switch the ball on to Johnson. And Johnson's a player with great experience in first grade and he knew what he had to do. And Ricky Walther will be taking this kick for goal now. Very experienced player. He's played first grade with North Sydney before he came to St George, and he's a player also that's been used in the #1 grade.
Kicked 39 goals this season so far and scored 10 tries, so 118 points behind him. And can he add another 2 points? No, he can't, so he'll stay at that. And the score will remain St George leading by 4 points to 0. St George with Funnell about to drop out from underneath that goal mouth. There he goes, big long one down the centre. It'll be taken back there by Thompson, who's been fairly prominent here so far. And going up is Hamilton, coming to ground just about on the quarter line. So it's Canberra with Jensen up there as dummy half. While there are St George in possession now, gives us a good chance to cross down there to Graham Hughes. He's having a chat with Phil Gould.
Thanks, Billy. Phil, it is a big one. I don't think Canterbury can afford, or they will get away with as much in the forwards as they did last week against Parramatta.
No, mate, St George are a physically stronger side than Parramatta, especially up front there in the forwards, and we'll have to be on our best behaviour today to take out the premiership.
You've been there as part of the side all week, training with them. Which way do you really see it going? What about the pace out wide? Do you believe that St George has the winning factor out in the backs?
There's been a lot said about the extra pace that St George has out wide, but our blokes last week showed that against the back line in the world, Parramatta's, that they can get up and cut these players off, and I've got no doubts at all that our back line will more than match St George.
All right, Billy, there it is from Phil Gould.
Okay, well, welcome back to the live action here from the Sydney Cricket Ground. 6 points to 4, the Canberra Raiders, and putting pressure on the St George line. It's Neil to feed the scrum for St George. The referee Mick Stone wasn't happy. It gives us an opportunity at this stage to welcome our friends from Orange, Dubbo, Griffiths and Wagga to the telecast grand final day from the Sydney Cricket Ground 1985. The under-23s was won by St George by 24 points to 20 in a great match over Parramatta. And, of course, St George got off to a flying start when Brian Johnson scored a try in the opening minutes of this reserve grade grand final. But it was Les Morrissey, the 19-year-old from North Queensland, that crashed his way over. The conversion came from Angel Marina, and it's currently 6 points to 4 in favour of the Canberra Raiders. A penalty to St George inside their own quarter line against Hawker Jensen with feet across the tunnel.
And the team that's going to win this one is probably the side that can settle down the quickest. The Raiders and St George have both done some good things on occasions, but they've both spoilt their copybook a fair bit by the way they've been coming up with unforced errors. And if they can just settle down, tackle for 6, then get the ball back and hold it for 6 tackles, I'm sure that their game plans will then fall into place and they can show us the sort of football they're capable of. But that's not happening at the moment. It's very much fits and starts type football. So
Funnell takes the ball up midway between the half and the quarter line, St George's end of the ground. The wraparound through Morocco, and that's Glanville that's taken in the tackle about 5 or 10 minutes in from that far touchline. There's the St George first grade side eagerly watching on the result of this match. They know they're under 23s are the champions. Can the reserve grade set up a great platform? Confidence booster, but that's the side that want to stop St George and the first grade side. That's the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs, led of course by Stevie Mortimer. So St George with the ball now, just short of the halfway line. It goes out through Johnson, the kick forward, down towards the touchline, and it finds it only about 5 metres out from the Canberra 25.
Well, the crowd are clapping, but for mine, that wasn't a good kick. I think that rather than kick for touch and virtually give Canberra the ball back from the scrum, Cannon would have been better to use the little kick in behind the defensive line for his winger to get through on it, because that's something that Mark Cannon does particularly well, kick for his outside backs.
Well, a replacement in the Canberra side, Grant Ellison, wearing number 37, as Ian Hamilton was wrapped up in the centre of the ground inside his own quarter line. Elliott. There's Ellis. Takes play outside the quarter. Fullback Peter Davis goes into dummy half, gives it to Backo. He takes play right upfield before he's wrapped up by Walsh. And over the top comes the captain, Morocco. There's a great bust by Morrissey again up over halfway. Oh, and the pass has gone forward. The knock on by the fullback Davis. But what a tremendous bust again, Bill, by young Morrissey. Yes, and once again it was around that ruck and on the fringe of the ruck area. Morrissey, of course, is a converted forward. He came to the Raiders as a back rower. Alan McMahon gave him the chance out in the centres, and he's made the most of it. He scored 7 tries in season 8, in fact 8 tries now, including 1 in the final last week. Johnson on the blind side. But his kick goes into touch on the full, so... Bad play by St George. They had the ball there on the first tackle. There's nothing wrong with kicking on the first from a scrum, but you've got to ensure that you don't put the ball out on the full, because the scrum now gets set back where the other one was, and the ball's going to be fed by Canberra and no doubt won by Canberra. So Thompson puts the ball in the scrum, but referee Mick Stone is not happy with the feed. So Paul Thompson, the Canberra captain, feeds the scrum again. It comes out to Blake, and Blake immediately kicks on the first tackle, turning Walford around. But the ball will go dead in goal. So again, we see a bit of tit for tat. Yeah, squandering possession on the first tackle. Yeah, neither of these sides have settled down to their game at all, Dave. They've dropped the ball on the early tackles. They've kicked when it hasn't been necessary, and they haven't kicked judiciously. And I'm sure that both coaches would eagerly be waiting the chance to get to half-time, get the players and explain to them exactly what's necessary to win a grand final. So you don't have to take risks such as they are at the moment. You've just got to play the sort of game you have all through the year. So the replacement Grant Ellis is on for Ashley Gilbert in the Canberra side. Canberra leading by 6 points to 4 as Roy Masters, the chief coach of the St George side, not only looking on for the result in this one, but just having a bit of a think about what's coming up at 3 o'clock. He's never won a first-grade premiership, Roy Masters. He won't have a better opportunity than this afternoon. I think the result of this second-grade game would be a great confidence booster for St George first grade if they can win it. They've already got away with the under-23s. It'd be a tremendous thing for club spirit if they could go through and win this one. Oh, look at this defence. Great run by Backo. Got the pass away. And it's a try to Canberra. Tremendous try scored by their skipper, Paul Thompson. And tremendous lead-up work by Big Sam Backo, the man from Cairns. Well,
Well, Bacco has split the line on 3 occasions. The first 2 times a try went begging for the lack of support, but this time that wasn't to be the case. It was all so easy. Bacco just stepped through the defensive line. He went off the left foot. He was able to get through that line of defence. He looked for support. Paul Thompson, good halfback that he is. He came from Illawarra to the Canberra Raiders, was backing up, took the inside pass, and over he goes. Thank you very much.
Well, he savoured the great feeling of scoring one in the semi-final. And he's done it again here on grand final day, but tremendous lead-up work by the big prop forward Bacco. And Thompson was there backing up. Desperation dive from Funnell, but the try scored by Paul Thompson. There he is in picture, the Canberra captain. And I'm sure that everyone in the national capital watching this coverage on CTC 7 in Canberra would be absolutely elated at that performance by Paul Thompson. It's 10 points to 4 in favour of the Canberra Raiders, playing in their first ever grand final at the Sydney Cricket Ground. Angel Marina kicked 3 goals in the final last week, has already converted the try by Morrissey, and he's converted another one. So the Canberra Raiders lead St George by 12 points to 4, and we've got just over 3.5 minutes of play remaining in this first half, and the Canberra Raiders cheer squad gets into action as we take a break. So welcome back to the Sydney Cricket Ground with news here that Canberra are leading St George by 12 points to 4 here in the reserve grade grand final. The under-23 side were victorious by 24 points to 20 to give the St George fans at the Leagues Club plenty to cheer about. They're struggling a little bit here with the Canberra side with that very, very handy lead indeed. There's the big kick put down for Johnson, and he takes it well. We're into the final minute of the first half, and he takes play outside the quarter line before he's wrapped up in the tackle. Waters affecting the tackle. So what a break for the Canberra side in this first half. Neil. Glanville got the pass away to Walford. He split them. Ricky Walford up over halfway, but Waters with a great tackle. Cut him down just as St George looked threatening in this final minute. Walford slowly to his feet. Cannon. Funnell. Johnson couldn't get the pass. Yes, he does, back in field. The kick and chase. But the ball beats Cannon. It goes into touch, but play will come back. But certainly St George throwing everything at Canberra, Bill, in the final seconds of this first half.
Well, St George wanted to go into this game a little bit closer than they are on the scoreboard, but it wasn't to be, and Canberra would go in very happy, and I'm sure they'll be met by a happy coach, Alan McMahon.
So 2 tries in the first half to the Canberra Raiders, to Morrissey and Thompson too.
And while they're not out of the woods yet, they're certainly looking good.
So we saw one change to the Canberra side in the first half. Grant Ellis came on for the second rower, Ashley Gilbert. Gilbert, by the way, went to the front row, and that meant that Sam Bacco dropped back into the second row. That's how, or rather the replacement Ellis went into the front row and Bacco back into the second row. So that's how things worked out there. St George kicking deep downfield, trying to keep things away over there, but going back this time will be Davis. Davis runs it up a little, but is going to be tackled some 18 metres short of the halfway mark. Just notice this Morrissey, the centre, Bill, he involves himself in the game. He's been in with the forwards, he's been everywhere.
Well, he's a good player, and I think that he'd be a coach's dream, really. We can see him in here again. He's running from dummy half. He's not waiting out in the backs for the ball to come to him. He's gone looking for work, and when you've got 13 players as committed as that, you're laughing.
Powell is being called out here by referee Stone. Yes, well, he's a former lock forward, so he probably hasn't totally made the transition to the backliners yet.
St George haven't learned from their mistakes in the first half. They're tackling much harder, but while they're doing that, they're giving away penalties such as this one.
Two-way tackle there with Powell over the top, and in underneath was Chris Walsh. And there's Walsh finishing it off, but it's going to be Powell, the man who has been penalised. And so now we'll see Canberra to kick for touch. And Paul Elliott, their second row, is the man to do it once again. Elliott making no mistake about this one, not gaining a lot of ground, bringing it up to 10 metres inside St George territory. Repeating, St George won the under-23 grand final by 24 points to 20 over Parramatta, and they trail in this one, but there's still a fair amount of football left in this match. Canberra in possession and on the attack. About to play, dummy half up there is Blake. Canberra just content to set it up at this stage. Jensen across over there, but the defence very smartly there of Walsh up on top. And getting up to play it there is Spears. Sending it across. That was Elliott feeding it across nicely. Robert Stone, who would have been in this side here today, keeping an eye on things on the touchline. He's out with an injury. But I'm sure he'd like to be out there, Bill.
I'm sure he would. He suffered an ankle injury, and it'd be a great disappointment to him.
That's a try. Touchdown, it's a try. Davis for Canberra, right on the spot. Spilled in the in-goal area. The man to lose it up there was Johnson. And a try for Canberra. Really zips them out with a good lead here at the Sydney Cricket Ground.
Well, some of Canberra's tries have come ever so easily. That one, the player was under no pressure whatsoever. It was Brian Johnson and Peter Davis. The fullback for Canberra was Johnny on the spot and came up with the money.
Let's have another look at it here. Up it goes. As you say, Bill, he had a fair amount of time back there, Brian Johnson.
No pressure at all.
Look at him. They're about, what, 4 or 5 metres away. Spilled his lollies. Davis said, thank you very much. Christmas is a couple of months early. And so we see Canberra with a big lead of 16 points to 4. And the kick yet to come by Angel Marina.
Well, things aren't looking good for St George, but they're a side that's capable of fighting back. I saw them a couple of weeks ago. They got into trouble against Parramatta and scored something like 20 points in the same number of minutes. So they're not completely out of this match, but they've got a lot of work to do.
They're in the in-goal area now in quite a huddle, and I'm not surprised. Their captain, George Morocco, would have them in there. He's laying down the law, and quite rightly so too. So St George with quite a job on their hands, particularly if Marina can put this one over. A break of 14 points, a little bit to start getting back, Bill.
Well, it's an important goal, this one. It would just give them that 2 converted tries break, but he's certainly not the most technically correct goal kicker I've ever seen.
I think the last one staggered through, like some people on a Friday night about 1 in the morning. Let's see what Marina can do with this one. 2 from 2 for him today. Ooh. Well, he might have snuck that one over on us, but it hits the crossbar and bounces back. Canberra leading St George here at the moment in the reserve grade grand final. The tally is 16 points to 4.
This man has a very common problem. Yes.
16 points to 4. And Bill, there's been a lot of speculation about what effect the week's layoff is with the side going straight to the grand final. But is this a case of it affecting St George in this grand final?
Well, looking at it from here, it very much is so far. St George are playing sluggishly. They're missing tackles and dropping balls. They're a side without any combination. They're getting back on the attack here through Mark Cannon. He's going to carry this on and go all the way, Cannon. Great St George try. We've just about written them off, but Cannon was able to fight back. He dummied inside after making the initial break, and he scored adjacent to the uprights.
Well, he scored a hat-trick of tries in the major semi-final. He also scored a hat-trick against Manly during the premiership rounds. And if ever he wanted to score one to bring St George back into this game, he's done exactly that.
St George were looking sluggish, weren't they? And they fired the ball to the left-hand side. It went to Chris Johns, and he made the initial break. It looked like it could have fallen down here, but Brian Johnson, the fullback, was able to shrug free of that tackle. He turned the ball back inside to Alan Neal, who handled twice. That pass looked as if it could have been forward, but it came back to Mark Cannon. He faked to turn the ball back to the touchline. The defence took the dummy. He set sail for the uprights, and over goes Mark Cannon to get the Dragons back into this second-grade grand final.
And it's 16 points to 8 here at the Sydney Cricket Ground. Brian Johnson made the fatal error that led his opposite number, Davis, to score that crucial try just a few minutes ago. He makes amends with a beautiful pass infield. Neal did well, got the pass to Cannon, he threw the dummy. Now he completely wrong foots the defence and makes the beeline for the try line. Davis couldn't arrive in time, and Mark Cannon scores. So the scoreline is 16 points to 10 with the kick successful from Walford. So St George back in the ball game. Well, Cannon, with the experience of a Challenge Cup final at Wembley back in 1983, when he was playing with Wigan during that 2-year stint, he knows what it is to score tries in big ones.
He does, and that's just the sort of medicine that St George needed, because they had looked sluggish. It appeared as if the week off had done them a lot of damage. Their tackling was poor. They were missing tackles around the ruck and coming up with a lot of fumble. They needed that try desperately. It was a try really that came out of nothing. It was back towards the halfway line. St George have capitalised on that, and that could just be the sort of psychological lift that they've needed to get back into this match.
There's Walsh taking play outside the quarter line, so this reserve grade grand final has come alive. 16 points to 10 in favour of the Canberra Raiders. Powell takes it up to 10 metres outside the quarter line. Adams broken the line again.
It's funny, you know, only 2 weeks ago, his coach, Johnny Bailey, pulled him aside and said, you're not doing enough. If you don't have a good game this week, you're going to be out of the side for the semi-finals and the grand final. Mark Cannon turned it all around, had an absolute blinder 2 weeks ago, and he's carried it on in the last few minutes of this match.
Here goes Neil. Neil with the support of Walford. He's going for the line. He'll get there. There's another try to St George. He'll come right around to the post. And the Dragons are back breathing fire here at the Sydney Cricket Ground. Ricky Walford scores his 11th try of the season. He scored one in the semi-final. And St George back in the ball game. John Jansen breathes a sigh of relief at 16-14.
Well, the fluctuating fortunes of rugby league. It was only a few minutes ago when Canberra were looking fairly good things. Then all of a sudden, St George have turned it completely around with 2 tries in something like 4 or 5 minutes. Here, the initial split was made by Funnell. He went through some very flimsy defence, turned the ball back to Alan Neil. Alan Neil looked on his right-hand side, and there was Ricky Walford, the former Australian schoolboy player, played with North Sydney, then to St George. He's got plenty of pace, pinned his ears back, and over he goes.
Well, I know our fans in Walgett in northern New South Wales would be jumping for joy because Ricky Walford's a former country player from Walford as well. I mentioned John Jansen. Was John Bailey that showed elation, the St George coach, and why wouldn't he? Because they have stormed back, showing what a champion team they are, to come back within 2 points of the Canberra Raiders with the kick to come, and it will come from the man that scored the try, Ricky Walford. His record in the grand final, 1 goal from 2 attempts. What a crucial kick this is. The crowd has absolutely built up here at the Sydney Cricket Ground as coach John Bailey looks on. And how much pressure is on Ricky Walford. There's his kick. Wait for the touch judges. The flags go up. The grand final and reserve grade is all tied up at 16 all. And we've got just over 21 minutes of play remaining to decide the reserve grade grand final here. But Billy J. Smith, we were ready to write St George off, but haven't they stormed back?
Yeah, one of the major problems of Canberra defence, Bill. They've missed 7 tackles that led to those 2 tries, so it's not surprising, is it?
And St George have been able to make those breaks by spreading the ball around. They might feel that Canberra have tied a little bit so far in the first 20 minutes of this second half, or the first 15 minutes. I'm sure what we're going to see from St George now is plenty of ball movement. They've got Canberra on the run, and that's where they're going to try to keep them. They'll spread the ball, the Dragons.
They did make 1 change into this second half. George Morocco came out shortly after the start, and Richard Clark came in, and he made a couple of early busts too. Maybe since he's been there, St George seemed to have come alive.
Yeah, it'll be a hard job for Clark because he played in the under-23 grand final. They've won that. He hasn't been able to savour the fruits of victory. He's had to sit on the sideline, but he's come on now as a fresh man after having a rest from the 3rd grade grand final, and here he is playing his part in the reserve grade.
Gee, Cannon's come alive too, and since he's really got moving, they started to do.
He might have got another rocket from the coach.
Yeah, well, he might have, because he was told, Bailey told him he wanted him to pass the ball, but he started to run himself, and that's when things are starting to come together. Bit of a miss here for St George, however, into touch on the full. So our reserve grade grand final is all locked up at this stage at 16 points all. 16 points all and 20 minutes remaining in the match. So we'll wait for Thompson to feed. Out one against the feed, so Neil gets it away. Cutting across over there is Johnston.
Gee, they're the mistakes you can't make in a grand final. Canberra letting St George come up with that one against the feed when the Raiders win attacking position. It's all St George here at the moment. They're just starting to finish on top, looking a bit too strong at this stage.
Powell about to play it. Dumbing half this time is Townsend. Townsend back over to Neil, then away to Cannon. He decides to let it go. Yes.
They are looking to move it, aren't they?
Yes, got it on to Johnson. They quickly let it go there, but they've lost it in the process, and Morrissey will end up with it for Canberra. And Morrissey still going, still going. He's over the quarter line. Pretty tough customer to put down. Eventually they do it, though, about 20 metres out from the St George line. Well, can Canberra come back now?
Well, it's a vital stage of the game for the Raiders. I think they must have thought that they just about were home and hosed. St George have hit back, and now it remains to be seen whether Canberra can do the same thing. And a lot of spirit needed from here.
Drop shot at goal going there from the half-back, but it's got a miss away there from Thompson. And so will they play coming back onto the quarter line. I suppose they're entitled to think, Bill, that they just about had it pretty much in their grasp, but it just goes to show what a game of football is like. In a matter of minutes, the whole thing has been turned around, and they are now 16 points all and fighting for survival.
Yeah, I think it's well and good that you can relax against some of the bottom sides in the competition, but when you get to a grand final and you're playing the minor premiers, you can't afford to have any lapses in concentration, and it was 2 such lapses that's allowed St George to get back on top of Canberra, and now they're looking good, but I'm not going to commit myself at this stage.
Well, one thing I must say, you didn't want to give St George away, because you know the brilliance of this side. They've been the high flyers in reserve grade right through the year, haven't they?
They certainly have.
Taking it up there this time is Walsh. Some players we've seen in the last couple of 5 or 10 minutes, Bill, that we didn't see a great deal of in the second half for St George. Are they settling into their pattern of play now?
Well, not only that, they've had a fair share of possession in this second half, and that was something that eluded them through mistakes in the first half. Football is a cyclical game in that if you drop the ball, you then give it to the opposition. Therefore, they've got all the ball, your defence falls apart and your game deteriorates even further. But if you can hold the ball for 6 tackles, it's amazing how quickly your game will fall back into shape, and that's happened for the Dragons in this second half of the grand final. 18
minutes to go in the reserve grade grand final as we welcome our viewers through Coffs Harbour and also up there through TVO in Brisbane. Reserve grade grand final in progress at the moment, and it's 16 points all.
Bill, Paul Barton has come on as replacement for Peter Davis. Paul, of course, is an Australian schoolboy and played in the test matches against New Zealand. He's still a schoolboy.
Yeah, well, that's a great effort, isn't it, for one so young to be able to go on in a reserve grade grand final, and it's something he'll remember all his life.
So we'll have a scrum a couple of metres inside St George territory. There's a replacement. Barton for the Canberra Raiders. Well, Davis has been found wanting on a couple of occasions since he scored that try for the Canberra Raiders. They had an advantage of some 12 points over St George, but in a matter of minutes, St George have flashed back in the second half to level it up at 16 all. There's a replacement player, Richard Clark, for St George. He came on for Captain George Morocco. So Elliott now. He's only about 10 metres in from touch. Don't think he'll take too many risks here. No, he doesn't. And a reminder too, of course, if it is a draw, we'll have an extra 10 minutes each way, Bill.
Yes, we will, and if it's still a draw, we'll have a replay on Wednesday night.
That's Blake cutting through up to the quarter line now. About to play a dummy half up there is Jensen. Jensen getting it over there. Now there's Morrissey into it again. No, it's not. It's on that occasion it was
Ellis.
Ellis, yes. So now it's Thompson up as dummy half. Here's the Raiders putting on the pressure. Can they do it? Cuts out Backo. They're losing the ball, however, running away from the position there. Just close to the line was Johnson, and Johnson put to the ground. Away from dummy half is Walford. Walford a couple of metres, about 5 or 6 metres away from the St George line. Graham Hughes, you might have some action down on that touchline.
Yeah, Stephen Jones in 42, Billy. He's about to come on for Mark Glanville, and apparently that'll cause a team change in the St George lineup with Mark Cannon moving to lock forward.
Thanks, Graham. Here's St George, just on their own quarter line at this stage. There's Cannon, but well wrapped up on this occasion. No chance of getting away from the Canberra defence. Very smartly on top of him was Johnson to wrap him up. Walford dummy half. And getting it across to Neil. They spread it wide. Now we've got a little bit of room to move over the top, coming through, sending it back inside. That would have carried forward, would it? Certainly knocked on. Referee playing it on, so it'll be Canberra getting away with it, and that's Darren Waters there, lock forward.
I think we had the indication there where St George spread the ball on the 6th tackle rather than kicked it, that they must field. They've got the advantage on Canberra out wide. The Canberra players are starting to tire, and they almost came up with a long break, St George.
So Jensen from dummy half, sending it across over in centre there. Ellis going to ground with it. 16 points all in the reserve grade grand final. Canberra and St George with just 15 minutes remaining in the match. Dummy half is Thompson, who's not afraid to get involved. Nor is this fellow either, in Morrissey coming up. Losing possession, however. St George ending up with it. Neil is the dummy half. Seen a bit of him in the second half too. He seems to have become much more involved. Injured player down there. There's players going in all sorts of directions at this stage here at the Sydney Cricket Ground. St George and Canberra, 16 all in the reserve grade grand final.
Discounts. Gorton Street, Coffs Harbour has over.
And And as we welcome you back to the reserve grade grand final live here on Network 10 from the Sydney Cricket Ground, it's locked up at 16-all with St George on the attack, and that's Walsh taking it up to 12 metres out from the Canberra line. It's been a great fight back by St George. It goes out through Neil and then to the replacement player, Jones. Here's Johns. Beautiful tackle that time. Stops his progress just metres short of the line. And St George still on the attack, but they lose the ball. So Canberra back in possession. Brian Johnston leaving the field. Who's the replacement, Graham?
In 31 on the left wing is Kevin Duckett.
So Kevin Duckett, also a member of that victorious under-23 side, is on the field for Brian Johnston. So Canberra with possession of the ball. Injured player is Waters, the lock forward. We noticed that Mark Glanville was replaced by Jones. Jones moving to 5'8", Billy, but tremendous raps on young Mark Glanville, the Australian schoolboy, coming into this grand final, but he only effected 2 tackles in the second half, and that's probably the reason John Bailey bought him off.
He is an outstanding young player. He must have suffered an injury either late in the first half or early in the second half that affected his game. He's only made the 2 tackles, and the change that's been made is Jones going to 5'8", which necessitates Cannon moving into lock, and he'll handle that. But one of the players that has held St George together in the forwards has been their hooker, Tony Townsend. He's already made 35 tackles in this match. He's had first-grade experience, and he's doing a great job for them in the centre of the rucks.
Well, you'd probably remember him from the days in Brisbane, Bill, when he played with brothers in 81 and 82.
Yes, well, he's put a big one in here today.
Here's Johnson with the ball now. He's really put himself into this match in the second half after making that error. There's Duckett, and he's well claimed in the tackle by Blake. He gets to his feet now and plays it to Johnson. And there's Jones. Jones unloaded to Walford, who's come in from the right wing looking for work. But he's claimed midway between the half and the quarter line at St George's end of the ground. They were down by 16 points to 4, the Dragons. They fought back to 16-all as Funnell takes play to within 10 metres of the halfway line. Townsend goes into dummy half. Ball loose on the ground. Neil can't control it. Johnson finally does. The referee says it was knocked back. Now Jones, nowhere to go as that defence in the form of Waters comes up to put him on the ground. There's the kick. Back for young Martin, the fullback. He took it very confidently. Takes play up towards the halfway line. In fact, crawls his way to within 1 metre of that halfway line. Elliott claimed to the tackle by Walford. 10 minutes remaining in this grand final. 16-all the scoreline.
Well, these are probably the stages in a game where, as a coach, you'd like to get a fresh replacement on to drop kick a field goal for you, or maybe break the defensive line. But out of necessity, both of the coaches in this match have had to use their replacements in order to satisfy injuries that have occurred. So they are in a difficult position.
There's Jensen. So play again, midway between the half-quarter line. St George end of the ground. What will Canberra's tactics be on the last tackle? There's the kick from Thompson. Hoiking it high in the air. Johnson under pressure, took it well. Right in front of his own goal line and takes play 10 metres out.
Well, that was a better take by Johnson. It's worth noting that he did have some protection from Alan Neal, who was able to support him.
Now St George move it again. It's taken upfield by Richard Clark, and takes it outside the quarter line. That's Townsend into dummy half. Rick Powell, who's worked very hard for St George. Cannon playing it lock forward now. There's Walsh. But again, that strong defence from Canberra. Last tackle from St George. 16-all the scoreline. There's the kick. Deep downfield. Martin dropping back for the Raiders. The ball bouncing inside the quarter line. He's got no support, but he's got plenty of pace, but beautifully mowed down.
Well, they're the things that win you the game. To my mind, that was probably the play of the game from Mark Cannon. St George having all sorts of problems, trying to ruck the ball out of their own area. They kicked the ball on the last tackle. It went to Martin. He had a lot of room to work in, and Cannon came from the clouds to pull him down, and that puts St George back on the attack again if they can get possession.
Well, that's one of the ingredients in that when you reach that final tackle and the kick, it's the chase that's more important, Bill, isn't it?
It certainly is. The kick's only as good as the chase. You can put through the best kick in the world, and if you've got no chases, it's of no value to you.
So Canberra, this time putting the ball to the air. Johnson coming across for St George. Will that bounce beat him? It goes back infield. He takes it on his quarter line. He's got Duckett in support on his left. He elects to go towards the touchline. 1 down, 2 to go. That's the the sign, but this game far from over. We've got 8.5 minutes remaining as Jones goes to dummy half. He goes the blind side. Funnel taken upfield before he's claimed in the tackle. Once again, Jones goes to dummy half. He feeds Clark. He takes it to 10 metres into Canberra's territory before he's claimed in the tackle. Townsend has really worked hard for the Dragons today. Cannon now Jones. He's got space. Johns. Williams with Walford in support. Got the pass infield, but a beautiful tackle by Blake ends his progress. Williams a dummy half. St George on the attack. It's put high in the air. Pressure on Canberra. But it's taken 2 metres out from their own line. It's 16 all in the grand final here at the Sydney Cricket Ground as Morrissey takes play upfield.
So they'll take it from there. 10-16 all. It's the score, all right. Plenty of action here at the Sydney Cricket Ground in this reserve grade grand final. Canberra well down inside their own quarter and attempting to get it out from there. But not being terribly successful on that occasion. Going to ground with it will be Wilson.
Well, it's real nail-biting stuff, but I think the tactics aren't that flash from either side. There's only been the one attempt at field goal. I thought then, when St George put up the bomb, they might have been better served to come up with the 1 point, and that would have sealed the game for them.
A couple of the fresher players, the wingers and so forth from Canberra, getting in there, acting as dummy half and so forth, trying to relieve their forwards a little bit because they've done a bit of the slogging work. This is Elliott kicking for touch. Ball carrying down there towards Duckett. Duckett going to take it. Slips back inside, but is going to be claimed in the tackle. Over there will be Waters, the lock forward for Canberra. So away from dummy half Johnson. Johnson will be well wrapped up, however. Coming in there to take care of them will be Michael Blake. Another replacement for St George. Once again, here's Mr. Mortimer down there.
Billy in for St George, number 38, Chris Guider on the sideline. He'll be going on to take the place of Tony Townsend.
Thanks, Graham. Back here now with St George in possession, about 5 metres inside Canberra territory. Waiting there as dummy half will be Townsend. Saints have used all their 4 reserves now. A little bit of scrappy play here, but there it's Cannon trying to step through. He looked good when he followed through after that kick before, and he does move very fast in those forwards in there. Really gets it going. Here's a kick through by Neil, a nice high one. Plenty of St George players there. They're going to look, regather. Knock on there. So at this stage, in the reserve grade grand final, it's still St George in Canberra at 16 all. Just over 4 minutes remaining in this reserve grade grand final, and they're locked up at 16 points all. And Graham Hughes, I think we've had a few more changes down there.
Of course we have. Well, of course, Chris Guider has now going on. You see him there in 38 making that tackle for St George, replacing Tony Townsend. And in the second row for Canberra, number 34 is Gary Britt. He's replaced Paul Elliott.
OK, so Canberra putting on some pressure now. They're about 30 metres out from the St George line.
They've got no choice to make. They've got to settle it up the middle here and then have a shot for a field goal. No decisions whatsoever should enter their mind other than that.
And another 6 in there. So Canberra in a nice situation now. Back home, who's done a lot of the tough, hard work up the centre for Canberra today.
And by the way, Bill, on that field goal, they don't have to wait till the 5th tackle. Now's the time to do it. They are in position. They're 20 metres out, right in front.
Well, the man would probably have to look for what Elliott's done in most of their kicking for line. Is he going to kick for goal? Yes, he does, but it's Thompson, rather. It was charged down, eventually picked up back there by Martin. And so it's Canberra. Blake.
Now they should do exactly the same thing. Have another shot.
Turn it up again. All right, let's see who goes this time. No one. Running around. Canberra right in front of the sticks and only about 18 metres out. They swing it back. Here's Thompson again. Well away and shorts. And back over the dead ball line. Play will come back onto the quarter. Nail-biting stuff, all right. Alan McMahon very nervous. So too is Don Ferner. Don't say I blame them, Bill.
Not at all. A draw in any game for a coach is a real trauma, but in a grand final it's worse.
Here's a little bit of trouble now as we see Johns on the move. Johns is tackled. Dummy half is Duckett. Can St George pull it out of the fire, or we go to the extra 20 minutes of play? Here we go. Johns. Well wrapped up though by the Canberra defence. They've come a long way now. They're not going to give it away at this stage with 2 1/4 minutes remaining. So here we see going through up there is Jones. Jones wrapped up. Cannon to dummy half. Cannon waiting. Turns it across over there. Back inside. Trying to find a way through will be Clark. Clark will be wrapped up. Cannon is the dummy half. Under the 2 minute mark now. Still at 16 all. Taking it up there is Clark again. So St George obviously going to work their way up. They're on the final tackle. They're a fair way away. So it'll be a kick through, but back over there will be Martin. Martin takes it, runs it out. Walford up there to tackle him. Wraps him up. 18 metres out now from the Canberra line. That's Morrissey. Morrissey wrapped up. 1 minute and 24 seconds remaining. So it looks like we've got the extra time, Bill.
Well, it went right down to the wire in the third grade with the under-23s with a 24-20 win to St George, and this one's not looking any different. We're going right down to full time, and it does look as if we'll be going into that extra 10 minutes each way.
So here's Canberra, about 8 metres short of that halfway mark. About to play this Waters there locked forward. That's Bacco. Bacco's done a lot of the tough stuff up.
Had a huge
He's still doing it. Gets the pass away, but it's going to be lost to St George. No, they can't handle it either. Still going. Referee Stone says play on. St George ball, and the man underneath there will be Duckett with it. Johnson is the dummy half. That's Cannon. Cannon straight ahead, but well wrapped up in the tackle. Walford is the dummy half. 35 seconds remaining. Funnel. Bacco's there, still going as Bacco. Also a crossover there will be Hamilton for Canberra. Running it out. Long pass. Right over the top, taken out here by Duckett. Duckett still going, up over the halfway, turns it around. This is Johnson. Can they pull it out of the fire at the deck? Back inside over there to Duckett. And away they go. It'll be a try right on the time. Right on the bell, it's Neil in for the try. Alan Neil, the halfback. And they made it with, what, 10 seconds to go, Bill?
There was 6 seconds to go on the clock. One of the passes there looked like it might have been forward to me. We'll see it on replay, and I'll try and pick up exactly which one it was, but a great finish for St George. Have a look at the elation there on the sideline. John Bailey, the red and white flags are flying.
Yes, I'm the same as you, Bill. I'll be very interested to see this as we go.
Here it is, the pass from Alan Neil. It went back on to Jones. He threw the ball over the top to Duckett. Duckett didn't look like he had anywhere to go, really. He started off the right, then the left foot, stepped back inside, fired the pass back on the outside, and there he found Brian Johnson. That was the pass that looked like it might have been forward. It picked up the support on the inside. It was Jones again. He got the pass back to Alan Neil, and a very happy Alan Neil crashes over to score the 4 points that has won this one for St George.
Brian Johnson, of course, made the error that let Davis score a very crucial try. This is the one that Billy Anderson and Billy J. Smith and I all thought looked a bit forward. It was hard to tell from that angle, but more importantly, Alan Neil scoots away, and that's the try that has sealed the game for St George. Well, Graham Hughes is down there with John Bailey.
Thanks, Brad. John, 5 seconds left on the clock. Could you believe it?
What a way to go. What a way to go. The replacements, they made the difference when I sent them on. Unbelievable.
John, a big performance by the side. Both sides doing it very, very tough. As you said, the replacements there. Who was your star?
Oh, mate, me star, I don't know, really. Ricky Powell probably in the second half. But they all played well. I couldn't take anything away from any of them.
John, congratulations on a great achievement.
Thanks very much.
Ricky Walford puts the extras, the icing on the cake. And it's a 22 points to 16 win by St George. So they're on target to repeating their performance of 1963 when they won all 3 grand finals. NEC, of course, have put up the $250 for the man of the match and the NEC Big Game Trophy. And Bill, I don't think we can go past Mark Cannon. He's played in a cup final at Wembley. He's come out today and really inspired this St George side.
He certainly did. He had a great second half, Mark Cannon. I thought all the St George players were way off their game in the first segment of this particular game, but the second half, Cannon led by example. He chased on kicks, he tackled when it was necessary, he covered, defended, he took the ball up himself, and I think he was the man that made the decision from the 5'8" spot, and then when he moved a lot, that it was necessary to spread the ball. St George did move the ball out wide, and it was that tactic that finally won the match. Even there with 5 seconds to go, the quick movement of the ball got the ball to the sideline for the winning.
So the man of the match is Mark Cannon. He's down there with Graham Hughes, and no doubt he's totally elated.
Mark, well played.
Thanks very much.
Did you believe it, that last couple of seconds?
Let's get out of jail, isn't it? That's great. I didn't think we could do it. I thought we were going to be an extra 10 minutes each way.
But that just goes away, show the way that football's played.
Well, Mark, the champagne's flowing here behind us. I know you want to join in with the side. $500 for the man of the match from NEC, as well as the NEC Game Ball Trophy. Well played.
Thanks very much. I'd like to thank the sponsors for the money. It's great. And can I just say one big hello to Keg Day. Thanks.
Mark Cannon, our NEC man of the match. After this break, we'll be back live at the Sydney Cricket Ground.
Premiership to George Morocco with the reserve grade trophy. Robert Page from Winfield has just presented that to him.
And also Robert Stone there too, David. He would have been out there, I guess.
Except for that ankle, Billy. Well, Billy Anderson, St George now on target to create rugby league history.
They are, Dave. No side, no club has ever won all 3 grades and been minor premiers and then gone through and won the 3 grand finals. And St George are now, well, they're right on line to do that. They've won the first 2 grades, the under-23s and the reserve grade. They were minor premiers in those grades, and they've won the trophy. So now all augurs for the first grade. If they can cap that off, it's the first time it's ever happened.
Well, that's Johnny Bailey there, the coach of the St George side. Billy J. Smith, I know that we've got an hour of great entertainment coming your way here on Network 10. But had that gone to extra time, our promotions director, Brian Walsh, would have had a heart attack, I think.
Yeah, they've just revived him, but he'll be back in time for what will be some sensational entertainment coming up here, leading to the big one for the grand final of the A grade.
Well, Billy Anderson, this is what the sides begin in March. The dream of doing the victory lap at the Sydney Cricket Ground, and already St George have claimed 2 out of the 3, and now the pressure's on the first grade side against Canterbury Bankstown.
Well, it's a tremendous achievement by any club to be able to win any grade, and they've won 2 when looking for the first grade. I do agree with what you've said. I think there's a lot more pressure on St George than there is on Canterbury Bankstown. But before we get on to that, let's have a look at these second grade players. It's something they're always going to remember. They're receiving their trophies from Wayne Pearce, the deserved Rothmans medal winner this year, and now that's the policy of the league. Greg Alexander, who was the Dally M winner, presents the third grade, the under-23 awards, and our Rothmans winner each year will present the reserve grade.
Well, for Duckett and Clark and for Guida,
a big day.
They've picked up 2. And there's George Morocco, the captain of the St George side. He's a player, also played with Souths in Brisbane, Bill. And they're going now on that victory lap at the Sydney Cricket Ground. Champions in reserve grade, but it took them to the 69th minute, or less than that, to achieve that after the game was all locked up at 16 points all. Billy J, I really thought it was going to go into extra time.
Yes, and particularly with the number of reserves that were coming out of the woodwork there at the end. Everyone running players on left, right and centre, but whoever thought they could pull it out right at the last minute?
Well, Robert Stone on crutches, nothing will keep him out of the action.
He might finish it by 5 o'clock tonight.
But I'll tell you what, Bill, this is the time when we should also think about the losers, Canberra. They came all the way from the ACT, their first ever grand final appearance for their club, and they did their club proud here. I'm sure that our fans watching this on CTC 7 Canberra will be just having a little thought about them at the moment.
Everyone that saw Canberra play today would be proud of the performance they put up. We could take nothing away from them. It's just unfortunate in any sport. You've got 100% elation when you win, and it's 100% disappointment when you lose, and that's the
Winfield Cup.